Hello, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to Empathetic Educators. I'm your host, Naomi Toland, and I'm very excited to have a very chatty bunch on today. We have Sharifah and we have Toria, so I'm excited to get the chat going and getting started. So let's get off. So, like I said, we have Sharifah and we have Toria on today, and we are back for episode 2 of season 3. And I'm really excited to have these guys on today, talking about empathy, talking about challenge, how we faced this 2020 with all the different changes that have gone on. So just a little reminder of the themes that we're having coming up in season 3. So we had growth in relationships in season 2, and we've been focusing on accountability and challenge as we've been going forward. So that's what we're going to be focusing on today and looking at what we can do with that. So without further ado, let's get these two on the screen and let's get ourselves started. Good morning to you both. Thank you for coming on. Welcome.
Hello, good morning.
I was just saying that we're going to have to definitely, we're a bit of a chatty bunch on today, so we'll have to kind of regulate the chat. We'll have to kind of keep ourselves moving forward. So good morning, and why don't you introduce yourself, Sharifah? Good morning to the chat.
Yes, of course. Do you know what? I really like your introduction when you said good morning, good evening, good night. It's almost like the Truman Show. You know, everyone, hello. So Sharifah here. I am currently an acting head in a small primary school about 20 miles out of London, a mother of 4 adults. 2 of them are somewhere, if I can move that way, 2 of them are on the walls. You can see there's Aisha there, who now actually lives in Leeds. And I haven't seen her for over a year now. I think just about a year because of, lockdown 1 and lockdown 2. And Adam over there is completing his PhD in Liverpool. So he went back 2 weeks ago, and he's doing things that are beyond me. It's maths as well. His PhD is in maths and computer science. And yeah, that it just blows my mind away. Currently, just finding things easy and difficult at the same time. Isn't it funny? And I think it's a lovely theme that we have on this morning as well, because it's very complicated, isn't it? We're all a mishmash of emotions day on day. And before we came on, Toria was just saying about how, and of course she will talk about her own personal circumstances, but we live in hope because, of course, there's this vaccine that's out there now that gives us some kind of hope that things will get better for everyone. And yet there's also the element of uncertainty as well. And I think that replicates itself in education in schools as well. So leading my school now in times of hope and uncertainty, we will need to talk about the empathy and that compassion as well. So yeah, and thank you for having me.
Grateful for you to be on, and all those different hats that you wear, all those different spheres. So thank you for bringing those perspectives on today. And Toria, welcome. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Thank you so much for having us, Naomi. It's really exciting, and I love the fact that you're actually quite nervous about us not being quiet, because Sharifah and I do just talk. So yes, and I'd like to point out to viewers that we have been told that she is going to silence us at times.
The hand's
going to go up, and she's already told us that. But no, I'm really grateful to be here. For those people that don't know who I am, I've done loads and loads of different roles in education, and I'm currently a year 4 teacher. I am an evidence lead educator. I'm the West Sussex lead for the OU UKLA reading group. I have so many different things, but I'm best known, I think, on Twitter, etc., for creating the Tiny Voice Talks hashtag and for making sure that people have their voice heard, because I think it's something that is so absolutely vital for us. We need to feel heard, and all too often I really think that through childhood we lose our voice, and that happens even more so as adults. We lose our voice, and what we need to do is we need to be heard, and we need to feel heard, and that's really empowering, I think. So yeah, really grateful that I'm here today, so you get to hear my voice.
Love it. And I promise I'll try and keep your voice going, but that little hand mic up sometimes. I will value that voice. I will value it.
I'll tell you, Naomi, I've got very good at using my voice now.
I will. I'll try. And I think that comes into as well. Like, I'm really enjoying having people live on chat, but also the comments weaving through. So if you are listening out there, in the Twitterverse or in the Facebook and YouTube, then maybe add in the comment and we'll be able to see that live and add that into the conversation. So you can tweet it out, hashtag empathetic_educators, or you can put a little comment and we can add that into the chat. So yeah, let's get ourselves started. We actually have Nick already on. Hi, Nick, joining in. Hello, ladies, she says.
Hey.
Love Nick. Hi, Nick.
We love Nick.
So yeah, she's amazing. It brings in that well-being piece as well. So I think, like you guys said, just there's so much even to delve into after you both have just had that introduction conversation. And I think with all the hats that you've just mentioned, that you've all, I'm as in awe of all these people who have I'm like a single person who has no children. And I'm like trying to juggle all these things. And it's just amazing to hear how many things that you guys are juggling. But like you said, I think that hope and uncertainty. So it's just, some days I feel up, some days I feel completely down, some days I feel just like nothing at all. And like, I think what I've loved through all these conversations, talking to you or talking to other people, and it's okay to just be all those things. I think that's the main thing about empathy piece. And just kind of talking about it helps me not feel as overwhelmed. So even like missing home and things like that, there was Orla on Twitter, and she was saying she was feeling the same way. And it's just really nice to hear like other people are kind of going through it as well. So yeah, we'll get the chat started and be able to hear your perspectives on these different things too. So yeah, let's watch the video. We'll watch a little video. We have Richard Gerver coming on from his session. We recorded it last year, which is crazy just to think that all these little takeaways that he's putting into this conversation was recorded before the pandemic. And it's still so true now at the minute that he's putting this into the conversation too. So let's listen to a little recording of him, and then we'll have a little chat about our takeaways from it. Let's go.
We need our kids to be truly skeptical. In other words, we need them to be learners, actually, because learners are skeptics, right? The whole point of being, world-class scientists are skeptics. World-class anything are skeptics, because your job is to constantly challenge convention, and that's curiosity. Kids under 5 are the world's greatest skeptics because they challenge everything. Right?
Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? What are you doing?
Why are you doing that? But why? Yeah, but why? But why? And eventually you just go, because I say so.
Take what I say.
Go to you.
I think it was actually a little short takeaway from this one, but I think I really like this video because I had an interview with a doctor, my friend Dr. Shane McIver, on Tuesday, and he was saying that he thinks one of the qualities that he wishes he was taught or he really learned and benefited from was questioning. So I think like us, whenever we grew up, and you kind of went along this kind of step by step, go on to the next one, go on to the next one, go on to the next part of your life, kind of not really aware of what's going on. But he thought the question might be a really good skill to teach our learners of, and not even just teach them. Like he said, 5-year-olds don't need to be taught to question, they question anyway. So I think it was really cool to bring this into the conversation. So Sharifah, what are your takeaways from that session?
I think it's quite interesting. I've written there, it's the great why, and you're right, especially in the early years. The younger the children are, the more they feel able to just question it. It's the why before you just say because I say so, just because I am the adult and this is what I say. But what sometimes happens, and I have seen it in education as well, either children, I wouldn't say they lose the ability. Sometimes we shut them down because we provide them with the answers. We say this is truth, but what is truth? Truth is perspective. It's where you're coming from. It's interesting where Richard said, he used the word skeptic as well. And I think we've got to be careful when we use the word skeptic or skepticism, because there's a negative connotation there in terms of, it's almost a denial. If you are a skeptic about something, you are denying perhaps a truth or somebody else's perspective. So I think I like what you said, Naomi, about questioning. It's always questioning. It's not that you just accept an answer or somebody else's truth. That for yourself, you decide with all the information around you. And children as young as 5 can do that because you test them. My magical moments are always in the early years, in reception classes, even in nursery. And you do trick them because you are the adult. You might put 5 animals there and just say, oh, I can see 4 cows. And they'll go, no, I can see 5. But you are what you're doing is you're encouraging them to challenge you, to say, no, actually, my version of the truth is different from yours, and it's fascinating. I think that's, what he says there's a lot to take away from that. But I think perhaps defining that word skeptic or skepticism.
And I think like skeptic, like you say, it depends what the word is used for. Like if it's skeptical, I'm being skeptical of that because you're like critically thinking, like but then if it is skeptical as in like you're judging that other person for what they're saying, I think what, like you said, is like, what is the truth? Truth is perspective. And I think that's so true. That's so weird that you've mentioned this, because I've really been thinking about this week, is my reality and someone else's reality is completely different, and how they take what I say. We actually talking about this, Toria, just before we came on, and you mentioned that words mean so much, but actually what we say means so much as well, and it can be taken, you can mean with good intentions, but it can be taken in a different way, especially whenever you're navigating all these conversations online at the minute as well. So what are your takeaways, Toria, just from what we're talking about?
It's really interesting, actually, that question, why, and children's interest, etc. I think, well, what a wonderful opportunity for talk. If a child is asking why, actually that's a wonderful opportunity to actually start having that conversation. And something that has been significantly impacted but through lockdown and actually COVID-19 is our ability to talk, and children's ability to talk with one another, because actually all too often they aren't having that, that sort of dialogue. So actually we really need, as educators, as parents, to look for those opportunities with our young people and really open up the conversations. What was very interesting when he said that about the why was, I was a why child at school. I spent my entire life going, but why? I was told that
I wouldn't believe that for 1 second, Toria. Why?
Yeah, I was dreadful. They would eventually go, oh, really? Because, it was like, why is pi that number? Why is it not a different number? No one ever bothered to get out a piece of string and show me how the diameter and then, the whole thing linked together, basically. They never bothered. They just said, because it is. That wasn't good enough for me. Actually have a conversation and tell me, because if I'm asking why, I want to know the answer. And that's what I would say to anyone out there. If a child is asking why, don't just brush them off, because actually they're asking you for a conversation. Have it. It's so vital. It really is.
And I think, like you said, they're asking for a conversation, and sometimes, like we all know very well, time is completely poor in like so many spaces where you're just like, I have to get through this, I have to get through this, I have to get through this content. And I think that's why I've been really thinking about that content versus creativity question, of like that binary thing of it's either content or it's creativity. It's either we focus on the academics or we focus on like the openness of everything.
Yeah.
And I think there's such a fine line between that open to conversation as well as trying to move on to the next step. And I've really been trying to, in my own practice, think about why am I making these learners do this? Why am I making them act? What do I think they need versus what do they actually need versus where am I trying to get them to? And I haven't got the answer yet, but the more I'm thinking about why am I trying to get them to do this one thing, it's helping me actually see, do I actually need them to get there, or can I actually take a step back and answer those questions? And it's like that inquiry-based model can be very open, but also how do we navigate as well? So yeah, it really is making me think about that as well too.
Can I come back to what you said, Naomi? Because that is, honestly, the dialogue and debate out there. Because of course, and I don't know how it is in Japan, but in the UK now, when we're out of lockdown, it's these words about children who have lost their learning and catching up, and it's such a deficit model that sometimes it breaks my heart. Because actually, you've just touched on something. Being time poor, we define that time. At the end of the day, we have choices here. And you talked about content as well. And I think it comes back to the aim and purpose of education. We can decide what content is important depending on the needs of the children. We start from where they are, not from what we believe they have lost. We don't even know what they've lost because they've not all come back to us yet. We need to assess, how they are. And Toria said that as well. Communication is key. Oracy is key. Finding out what they know, their mental health and physical well-being as well. And then once we have assessed where they are, then we can decide what should come next. There must be a long-term plan. Of course there must, however, it's a future that is unpredictable. And you've just said, in a microcosm, in a small context, you're thinking that in a classroom now, but also I think it needs to link up to that macrocosm as well. And to me, it's just a little bit sad when we start talking about catching up or keeping up or time that is lost or learning that is lost. It is such a deficit model, and we need to turn that round.
We really do. I think we need to step off the hamster wheel as such, which we're somewhat on, because we're thinking, well, we need to cover this and this and this and this and this, and step off the wheel and actually go, okay, let's have a look at our children. Yep. What do they need? Yes, I need to cover the national curriculum, but what do these children right here in front of me need right now? And that's what's key. I really do. And I think I saw something on Twitter this morning about catch up things and summer schools and late night tutoring, and I was thinking, good God, we're going to kill these children off before they've even hit sort of adulthood.
Forget about, of course, they must be central to our thinking, but think about the people who have got to provide for this. The teachers who are completely depleted, exhausted, leaders who, and I'm one of them as well. We talked about the uncertainty. We're going through such turmoil physically, mentally. There's been no respite. And yet we're putting something on, and something extra to that wheel. We want that wheel to spin even faster. And you think, no, actually, it's time to almost slow it down a little bit and assess what do we actually need. And there's been so much loss. I mean, we just look at the numbers in the UK and I think we've become number numb. The data has made us numb, that when we look at, there were like over 1,000 deaths again, I think it was yesterday or the day before, whatever it is, that we just walk on by. And that empathy, so come back to your theme, where is that now? Because someone on Twitter this morning, and I wrote it down, I can't remember, said that empathy is the most radical human emotion. I may just disagree with that. I think it's the most basic of human emotions. You can't just walk on by, because what does that say about you? How does it reflect us as humans? We become almost inhuman, inhumane, and I think we just need to start slowing down and ponder, what do these numbers actually mean? And we're going to have children who have come back, who are grieving, who have lost family members, and we're thinking about them catching up to this national curriculum that Toria talked about. A team of people decided this was a national curriculum. We can decide again. And we can decide yet again.
I think exactly what you're just saying about like empathy. The reason why I love empathetic education, why I'm so passionate for empathy is, yes, I believe it is a very basic human way of life, but how much is lost of that basicness because of what we're striving for, because of what we're looking for over here, versus actually seeing where we are. And I think what you're both saying is like, meeting someone where they are helps that empathy piece, but we can get so blocked and so distracted by all the other things going on that we're trying to go over here versus actually being here. And I think, because I was talking to like my mom and dad after one of the sessions, and I was like, all I'm advocating for really is in my head is common sense. Like in my head, it's like all I'm advocating for is the kindness and like all those things that we're really passionate for. But it's really sad that I have to advocate for it. Do you know like that's kind of where I'm feeling at the minute, the more I'm doing it. Yes. Go ahead, Toria.
But I think it also takes courage. And that sounds bizarre, that it takes courage to actually go in that direction, because actually, now I don't know about you lot with your sort of performance management or professional development, whatever else you call it, but actually within that, they don't say, right, so this year we're going to work towards, becoming more sort of empathetic. It's usually, right, so this year what we're going to do is we're going to work towards, blah, blah, blah. And it's usually some sort of data thing. There are other things within it, but empathy is sort of an expected norm that actually you have to be courageous and educated to have. I think, because I don't know, again, let's look at student training. Do they actually spend many sessions talking about empathy with learners and the importance of that in order to really become the very best teacher that they can? No. I would say there's a great emphasis on a lot of other stuff, but I very much doubt that they do terribly much work on that whatsoever.
I think like what we're trying to draw upon is like where it came from is the curiosity piece, like allowing people to be. And I think that's what I'm just, the more and more I have these conversations, the more and more I'm like weaving it all together. I'm just like allowing people to be who they are versus being someone who we think they should be. And I think that's what I'm really glad you guys are coming on as parents, from a parent point of view as well, because like I think like it's really easy for me to say this is what I see in the classroom versus what a parent sees at home. And most of the parents who are like trying to get me maybe to do like more academics or things like that, they're coming from a good place, as in like they want to have the best for their kid versus like what they think is the best. And maybe what we're talking about at the minute is seeing the kid for who they are versus what we think is best for them. And that comes even to like the teacher point of view as well as the parent point of view. So yeah, I think like that's kind of what we're bringing in. I think like Nick just said, we are on the cusp of education revolution. Yes, Nick, we have this positivity that can open up the child to develop in the whole self, where creativity and curiosity can help develop them into great human beings. I think that I totally agree. Is like, as I said to Rob, my partner's a teacher as well, and I was like, I really do think things are going to change now. Like if we can keep pushing and keep like saying this type of stuff that we're having these conversations with, I hope there is an education revolution. What do you think? Do you guys think? Are you hopeful like Nicola?
I am, and we live in hope. We must have hope and hang on to hope as well. However, there is also this national agenda that fills me with a bit of dread, and it will take courage, and that word courage as well, because sometimes you feel that you are, and coming back to what Toria said about voices, you feel like you are the lone voice, and that's where we all must come together and stand up together and say, no, this is what we believe is right for our children now, because we want them to be those curious learners who will have to solve problems that we don't even know exist now. I mean, no one could predict a pandemic. Yes, and when it came, my goodness, maybe we're all, thrown off our wheels and everywhere else. And these things will come again in different ways. And so we need our children to be curious, resilient, all those things that we know. But I think by focusing on, I wouldn't say the wrong things, but perhaps our direction has been blinkered. Now, we began with vision. We talked about my personal vision, how I can't see, whatever it is, but I think we have become blinkered. Oh, you laugh. You see how I threaded that in? Quite.
Nice. That was genius.
I can't see, I'm blinded, but I think we have become blinded in this fixation for results. It is results driven, and this thing about the catch up again. What are we catching up to? We're catching up to those results that we thought were measures of success. Really, has this pandemic not allowed us to learn that perhaps those are the wrong kind of results?
Oh, that could be a question in itself, isn't it? Have we not learned these type of results, or what we're looking at? Why are we looking for them? Like who has set that? Who has put that as our like thing that we're chasing? I think I'm gonna put my hand up because I'm like, I love this conversation, and I'm like, yes, this is exactly like no, but like this is exactly like all these questions that we don't have to have the answer just yet, but even just like you said, having the courage to even talk about this. And I love having people from like different parts of the world saying these same things. And like you said, like with the Tiny Voice Talks, hearing all these people come forward and talk and weave and have the same but also different. So like some people say yes, content is needed and this is why. So having those voices saying like, why is the content needed and what we can weave in to go forward with that element? Why is the creativity? I really do think, even though I agree that there's agendas, that revolution is only caused by conversation, like you said, and hopefully the more we can have these conversations, the more we can weave going forward as well. So yeah, like I was tired. Whenever you said Sharifah, you were like, oh, I'm feeling a bit tired. I was like, yeah, I was feeling that too. It's my nighttime, it's your morning, but I am feeling a bit pumped now, guys. But yeah, so I think it kind of weaves into exactly what we're talking about, is like that challenge element on a personal level. And I think like I'm just trying to get, because I'm really, really passionate about, like, whenever I have my fight, that's what it's all about really, is like whenever I have my fight, it made me think about accountability for myself. And that's why I really like the theme of accountability and challenge weaving through empathy. And I think like it changed my whole mindset towards, I actually seek challenge now. I want myself to just have a challenge and go over it, have a challenge. And I actually like crave that kind of like, how can I extend myself more after feeling how it's awful. It is awful. Like after I had my concussion for my fight, like I was like crying and everything, but what I learned from it versus what I'd lost from it was so much bigger than in that sphere. So like maybe could you share kind of like what you find challenging, how you overcome challenge or things like that? Maybe Toria, we'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about something that I haven't actually talked about, so this is first. So I was diagnosed with cutaneous and systemic mastocytosis. 2-3 years ago now, at the time blurs, and basically I spent an awful lot of my adulthood very, very unwell. It took many consultants, etc., to actually get me to the point of diagnosis. And you know, so I'm actually extremely clinically vulnerable currently. I've been shielding. It's been really interesting because my diagnosis and the fact that it does affect my health so significantly meant that I took a change of direction within my career, and you know, I'm now back in the classroom and absolutely loving it. But actually I needed to take a change of career, change in direction as such, and step off the leadership ladder and everything else and put my health first. And actually, you know, my health, it has been challenging because we just take our health for granted, or at least I always did. I took my health for granted completely before this really happened. And the last few months have been really tough, been shielding, not seeing anyone. At times I've been quite sort of upset and down, feeling very sorry for myself. But then I have to get a reality check, which is actually, you know, my school's looking after me. My family absolutely love and adore me. I'm very lucky. I've now had the vaccine. It's having those reality checks. But actually the positives that have come out of it, there have been so many positives that have come out of the diagnosis and out of new change direction. One of them being the whole Twitter thing. That's quite exciting. I don't think that would have occurred if I was still in leadership. But also then, you know, it's been really interesting since I've been shielding. I've been teaching in an entirely different way over the last 4-5 months, however long longer. I've lost count now of how many weeks, months I've been shielding for. But you know, it's been great. I've been beamed in virtually and taught the class from, you know, big screens. I've been teaching remotely. I've learned so much about my craft that I don't think I would have learned had I not been shielding. And also, you know, I think it's looking for that silver lining every single time. You know, it has been tough being diagnosed with this, and it is not. So for anyone out there that doesn't know what it is, which is no one, it won't decrease the you do, because I've explained it to you in length. Yes,
it's a very long word that I've never heard before, so no, I have.
So
I'm one of those people.
Basically, in a nutshell, cutaneous is skin, systemic is internal organs, and mastocytosis, so the mast cells in your skin. So if you imagine a mast cell is when you get stung by a bee and you get a little red dot, that's a mast cell. So I have the mast cells going off in my body all the time, reacting to anything and everything, both on my skin and in my internal organs, just continually having allergic reactions all day, every day, doesn't stop. I know it's quite exciting, but wasn't when I wasn't diagnosed, I tell you. But actually, it's been sort of a silver lining because it has made me sort of stand back and look at my life and think about what's important, what I want, etc. And it's been tough, but at the same time, I'm incredibly grateful. As I say, it won't reduce the length of my life, but what it does is it limits it. So one sad thing that everyone out there will be really sad about is I can't exercise. So I can't run because it changes my body temperature.
I don't know if I would be happy or sad about that. Some days I'd be happy, some days I'd be sad.
You know, and Toria knows I do not exercise. So, you know, this then can become the excuse and the reason in one. Hooray! Hooray! Oh my God!
Silver linings.
So I don't have to lie for not participating in PE anymore. This is the truth. Yeah. I can't do PE.
Yes. I know that's gone slightly off on a tangent, but I just felt when I saw that word, what challenge have I faced? That's actually been, I think, my biggest challenge to date, being diagnosed with that and actually having to readjust my entire life for it. So, yeah,
No, definitely. Thank you for sharing that on Empathetic Educators. So thank you for because it's like whenever I had my allergic reaction, you were like, I know what that's like, and I was like, oh, I kind of knew what you were, but yeah, you definitely know what that's like because that was that's your life every day. But I think it goes back to exactly what Sharifah said at the very start. What is truth? Truth is perspective, and like what you were just sharing there now is like your truth, but like you didn't go on a tangent. That was you actually sharing the challenges you overcome and how that. I think that word gratitude, it's so true. Like gratitude actually, like it's getting more and more proven that it actually changes the chemicals and it actually makes things different. But the more and more I catch myself going down a rabbit hole, and it happens every day. Like it literally happens every day, rabbit holes. But I'm catching myself more and more, so the rabbit hole isn't as deep. And gratitude is one of those things where I'm like putting perspective on my own life and having that. So yeah, thank you, Toria, for sharing that. And yeah, Sharifah, do you have
Yeah, well, I'll have to change. I'll have to change my mind. I wrote a list actually because you did ask a question, you know, what challenges have you faced? And I thought, my goodness, relocating to a new country. But then both of you have done that. You've both done that, and we are 3 successes here. Hopefully, we still believe that we're successes. Motherhood and parenting was a massive challenge. 4 children under 5s. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say what that was like. That was quite. It was lovely. I think you forget, like labor and giving birth, you forget, and then it's rose tinted glasses, thinking, oh yeah, I'll have another one. Leading in a crisis is something because, of course, you know, I was chucked or thrown in the deep end in September. I took up the headship because you know, there was a hole in our leadership in the school. But I think, thinking about what Toria said, it's something that has recently happened, and it's back to vision as well, because what I have, and again, it's back to health, isn't it? And how health is so fragile, and you really need to not only look after yourself, but also be grateful for what you have, and back to that gratitude again. So what I have, let's see whether you can beat this now. But what I have is called myopic macular degeneration. I am extremely myopic, and I was in a conversation yesterday with someone who is also myopic. He said, oh yes, she's -6 in each eye. I am -20 in each eye. So my real glasses are more like magnifying glasses. These are my reading glasses. So I wear contact lenses because there's the vanity in me refuses to wear my really ridiculous looking nerdy glasses. But on top of the myopia, what has happened is that the back of my eye is called the macula is really extremely thin. And in fact, this is the reason why I can't do any more sport as well, because any impact sport would break the macula at the back, and it happened. And so let me describe a couple of years ago. This was 5 years back. I was teaching in a year 3 classroom, and the back of the classroom, I just put on this beautiful display, and the display just looked wonky. There were just wobbly lines on the display. And I really thought it was, I had put my contact lenses in error. You know how you swap them around, or, you know, just in the morning or whatever it is. And I went to the bathroom, I sort of swapped them, and it did not rectify these wobbly lines. So I rang the opticians, who knew exactly what it was, asked me to come in, and what has happened is I've lost the vision in my right eye. The central vision is completely gone. It's irrecoverable. And it's a condition that will get progressively worse, and I've got to monitor what happens to my left eye, because it might happen to my left eye again. So this is not a sob story. It was when it first happened. Oh my goodness me, I sobbed. And I'm sure, Tori, you had that same reaction as well, because like you said, it limits the things that you can do. Right now, I can see well through my left eye with all the different prescription lenses, but through my right eye, I can barely see. Right, so none of you exist, and I said at the start as well. If let's say I start, so can't see your hand, I'm just going to carry on. And so the treatment for that are these injections to the back of the eye to help the blood, to have the blood actually clot and scar the back of your eye. But what happens is you lose your sight, and it will become progressively worse. Now, Toria knows, some of you know, I am going to be 50 this year. I'm only about 6 months older than she is. Apparently.
Oh, shush, you're not saying that.
This
one of us in this conversation is still 48.
The show is over now. Oh God, here we go. There's no coming back.
Right. So coming back to this, right? I think I'm going to be 50 years young, because actually 50 is the new middle age. 50 is actually, I feel quite youthful in sort of my outlook in life, but this is going to limit the things I can do. And eventually I may not be able to drive, I may not be able to read. And when And when you try and live your life to the fullest, that's a difficult thing to contend with. However, you flip it and think about the things that you're grateful for. I am grateful for this life. I'm grateful for the connections. I'm grateful for the friendships. I'm grateful for my job, my family, the things that I'm doing now, you know. And I think I will need to respond to whatever challenges life brings, because you don't know what's around the corner. It is that word again, uncertain, isn't it? But if we live life in fear of the uncertainty, I think we have limited ourselves as a human being. Sorry, not a sob story. I'm going to put my own hand up to me like this. Stop. And you take the floor.
No, it's so true though, because like the two words you mentioned at the very start were hope and uncertainty. Yeah. And like that literally comes back to that again. It's like the uncertainty, it's inevitable. It's always going to happen. And I think in the Richard Gerver, he mentioned as well about like we have to start navigating an uncertainty, and like every time that's always been uncertain, but now it's just constantly uncertain. So having that hope in the uncertainty, and it's like you said, it's not about not feeling it. And that's actually a really good, like it's about actually being like stop and then like looking at yourself and saying, what actually do I have? And that's exactly what you just done there now is what I'm finding myself doing. Is if I find myself spiraling, or if I find myself like going somewhere that probably isn't helpful for me or other people, it's actually saying stop. What do I have? What's going on here? Why am I spiraling? And catching yourself. I think because it's not about not having them. And that's going back to the idea we talked about before, is I don't want to be a person advocating for empathy and not understanding. So like I think a lot of things I'm putting out now is kind of positivity and how we can have positive attributes. Then some people have wrote and said, how do you deal with negative talk? What are you doing with that? And it's not about not having it. It's not about always being positive. It's actually having practical. I really like, there's a person called Gary Vee, and he talks about practical optimism. And it's about actually seeing where you're at and understanding it, and then being practical toward moving forward as well. So weaving those both together.
Absolutely, it really is, because I think the thing is that I've gone through periods of my life where I've just felt very, very down, very negative, etc. And I look back at that time now and I think I was so lucky, yet I couldn't see it. And it's just about trying to change those glasses over and going, okay, this is this, but I like that. But
I like it too. Actually, it's kind of like Beyonce. If I could then share
it is. It's very Beyonce.
We could do it together.
But it is about, you know, no one's life is perfect. There is no one here who's got a perfect life. We all have our struggles, our ups and our downs, etc. You know, and actually parenting is a great one, because parenting, you have these moments of just sheer joy, and you have these moments of just pulling your hair out. And the interesting thing is that on social media, you just see the sheer joy, and you assume that everyone's else is in sheer joy. But it's about having the, you know, really, really thinking about, okay, what have I got? What have I got right now that is truly, truly wonderful, and focusing on that. And I think affirmations, you know, I was skeptical about affirmations. I thought they were well dodge, but I've been using them recently on the back of John McGee's advice. I've been using them, and you know what? They actually work. So for anyone out there that's skeptic like I was, they work. Surprised me.
How do you use them, Toria? Because, you know, like you, I'm using Richard's word now, skeptic. I was quite skeptical of affirmations as well. But I think they do work. I think it's about, if you don't accept yourself, how can you ever convince others to accept you? It's about self-acceptance, isn't it? It's about self-compassion, self-acceptance, and you're affirming that you have every right to belong here. You have every right to pull your chair at the table. You have every right to exist in a wonderful world. You may not be able to see it yet, but I suppose through the practice of self-affirmation, that might work. However, how do you make it work?
So I was incredibly skeptical about how on earth you do these affirmations, etc. And what John said is just repeat them as much as you can, not just when you're in a good place, just repeat them, make them sort of something that, so if I'm out walking the dog, I will just be, you know, I'm sure people think I'm utterly mad, but I will just be, you know, saying an affirmation to myself. And I'm not yet at a place where I can stand in the mirror and actually say an affirmation to myself in the mirror. I'm not there. But, you know, I think it's just repeating it, because I think I don't know about you two, but in my head, I have a tape that regularly plays of negative talk. It just regularly plays with, oh my God, you've done that again. Oh my God, you know, you're just, yeah, there are certain phrases that are just inbuilt. And what the affirmations do is it puts on another tape. The difficulty is that whereas my negative tape is one that is just will naturally play because it's just inbuilt, I'm actually having to teach, in a sense, teach my tape recorder, talk about old, teach my tape recorder this new sort of language so that one day it will just naturally click on. And that's the way I see it, that I'm actually teaching my sort of, I'm recording new tapes.
I love that. That's such a like, nice visual for it as well. And I think like it's so true. And I'm curious about this because I've been really like talking about self-talk recently about, and that's the reason why I was actually Orla said, how do you not have negative talk then? And it's actually, I'm curious about, can you actually take out the negative tape, or is it always going to be there, but you're just changing the tape more regularly? So like before it was just ongoing, but now you're like intentionally stopping it and putting on the more the positive. And I think the more like looking into the neuroscience of things, like, and I think our brain actually, the more I'm looking into it, it's natural for us to go into the negative because we're comparing against other people. We're looking at those things that we don't have. But like you said, it's catching that tape and changing it, And the more, I'm exactly the same as you. I was doing affirmations for my fight. And I was like putting in my head, like, I'm a fit, fearless fighter. Like I chose the words and just kept going, fit, fearless fighter, whenever like I was putting that into my head. And I actually you sometimes use that now, not for the fight, but like it is kind of I can put it in and it's actually there now. It's like a tape that's there, and it's because I'm using it so much. So like you said, it's quite nice to hear. I like the tape analogy. I like that. We got some hand movements and we got some tape.
What just occurred to me then, I just had what we may call an epiphany, really. I think just listening to you both as well, you know, because I think that the negative talk in our head, which comes naturally, is self-doubt, isn't it? We make a mistake and you know, we are our worst critic or whatever it is, but it's actually a primal form of self-defense. It is because then what we do is, you know, we try and minimize the risk of getting hurt, minimize the risk of getting judged, minimize the risk of criticism. So it's part of this self-defense. But coming back to, again, the theme of today about challenge, if you live in that self-defensive thought of self-doubt, negative talk, you will never then enable yourself to take that risk, that challenge that you talked about, you know, and it's all connected, isn't it? So if as educators, and hopefully most of us here who are listening in are educators, well, if we want our children to challenge themselves, to take risks, to be risk takers, I think we need to start talking back at ourselves and saying, hang on a minute, accept the mistakes, accept the self-doubt, because that is a natural thing, but also have that positive spin, like you said, you know, play that record that you can do this, because we play that record to our children in school, in our classrooms, in our schools every single day. We tell them, you can do this. I believe in you. And we use the word not yet. You might not be able to do it yet. And we always give them that hope, isn't it? That is that yet, that if you work differently, you will get there. With my support, you will. Why can't we do it to ourselves?
No, it's so true. I think Nicola's actually doing a really good job of summarizing what we say. Well done,
she's
Nicola.
fabulous.
Yes,
she is fabulous, honestly.
Nicola.
Yeah, very good, Nicola. When we face challenge with a growth mindset, you can look for the ways that work with, around, or through things. And I think that's actually like exactly what we're talking about, is the challenge part, but it's the growth mindset. Exactly. Why do we do it to ourselves, and versus what other people are doing? I think I talk to my kids all the time about, would you say to someone else, what you're telling yourself? And I'm sometimes like, oh, that's a good thing, I might take that on. Sometimes I'm teaching the kids it, I'm like, do I do that myself? No. So I'm like, I say to myself, would I say that to someone else in front of them? Would I go and say these hurtful things? No, I wouldn't. So why am I putting that in my own head? And and I think that's so true. Like, it's that growth mindset piece, but also the empathy for ourselves, not just for other people too. So
absolutely. One of the affirmations that I use, and I'll probably get it wrong now that I'm actually live doing it, but I've taught my children it because it's so good, which is, I'm doing the very best I can until I find a better way to do things. And I love that because actually, you know, it means that everything that I'm doing is the very, very best that I can do at this precise. And my children love that affirmation. I'm sure John McGee will come on and go, you haven't said it correctly. But I think that I'm doing the very best I can until I find a better way to do things. But I think that one there, I think, is so vital for, it's really helped me, but it's also really helped the children that I'm teaching, because rather than having that fixed mindset of I'm going to make, what if I make a mistake? Actually, they're going, do you know what, Mrs. Bono, I'm doing the very best I can at the moment until I find a better way to do things. I'm like, yes, I love it. You are. Well done.
Can you picture them going home to their parents saying that too, and they'd be like, who told you?
I'm doing the very best I can.
Oh, you mean when they've not really cleaned the room or whatever. I'm doing the best I find a better way.
Like, no, you're not getting all the time. Hilarious. Love it. No, that's love it. I'm going to add that into my repertoire of affirmations. I think that's quite.
I love it.
It's for me. It just works, because a lot of the time I beat myself up for not doing things perfectly, and for me, just to know that actually I am doing the very best I can right now, and until I find a better way to do things.
Thank you. I'm loving the share and the take. That's exactly what I'm hoping for from these sessions, is the takeaway part of it. Is because it's okay for us to like kind of talk about the why, talk about what it should look like, but actually sharing those like takeaways towards what it does look like for us. Yeah. And hopefully someone might get the takeaways and be able to use those in their classroom or for themselves. I think that's what I'm really passionate about, is like empathy, yes, for our kids and having empathy for them, but it starts with us. It starts with seeing it for ourselves, and it's so important to have that space as well. So yeah. Oh my goodness, love it. So I'm going to put on another next video of Richard, and I didn't have my hand up for that one. I love it. I'm actually going to use it now. So I'll put on the next video and we'll have our little takeaways from that too.
And I think within education, the really important thing is for me to remember that our moral responsibility, actually, above all things, you know, we can have debates and conversations about whether education should just be about helping children understand the joy of learning, the absorption of culture, of knowledge, of whatever else it is, which are all valid, right? To me, if you strip all of that back, the number one most important moral reason for mass education is to prepare children to cope with the challenges of their future. Now, if as an educator, your job is to help to prepare children for the challenges of their future, then you have to realize that the future you were preparing kids for when you finished training, even 4 or 5 years ago, is not the future we're training our kids for now. And therefore, we have to remain not just flexible, but we have to remain deeply curious. We have to have the confidence to challenge ourselves, because ultimately, you know, what all a teacher is a kind of translator of complex stuff, right, into stuff that's tangible for young people. But also, we're lead learners, and any teacher that isn't prepared to step out of their comfort zone on an hourly, daily basis, frankly, has no validity in a classroom, because you should never expect anybody else to do stuff you're not prepared to do. Doesn't matter what age the kids are, if you're not prepared to step out of your comfort zone and take a risk. Because again, if you think about it, that's all learning is, right? Learning, I mean, I've said, one of my mantras is you never learn anything new from getting something right. You only ever learn something new from the point of a mistake or the realization you don't know something new, you can't do something.
And I think it goes back to what we're talking about. Like, I think it actually is a good summary of everything. Yeah. I think we've actually touched upon this even before it's come on. I think it's just a good summary of what we've been talking about so far. And I think, but whenever I listen to that as well, it's also that empathy piece for, like you said, Sharifah, and like you said, Toria, challenge is hard. It's hard, like taking that risk, and like, because the risk might be that you are trying to use an iPad for the first time, or the risk might be that you are taking it off to the whole nother level and using, but those both risks are equal in effect. So it depends where those teachers are at and where those learners are at. I think that's all my biggest thing is it's empathy for people. Like, go back to, you're trying your best with what you have. Your mentor, Toria, it's like people are trying their best mostly with what they have. So it's that empathy piece as well. So I don't think we have touched upon all. That's exactly a summary of what we've been talking about. But do you have any other takeaways from that, Toria, for what you've got?
I think what he says about the fact that we are preparing our young people to be basically for their future, we're preparing them to be global citizens. And actually, I've now been teaching for 20 years. And in order to prepare the students I'm teaching now to be global citizens, I've had to continually learn along the way. What I learned in teaching college way back when, completely irrelevant, really, big scheme of things. And it's about that being continually open to learning, to new ideas, in order to really do the very, very best by the young people that I teach. I'm just looking what else he said. Yeah, that flexibility, absolutely vital. And the reason why I love the Twitter community, the reason why I love the Tiny Voice Talks, the reason why I keep creating things is because I love learning from other people. And I find that all of these sort of forums and platforms such as yours, etc., allow me and enable me to learn so that I can then benefit the young people I have in front of me. And something that Carl Coupe said when I was interviewing him for Tiny Voice Talks, he said that actually now, I think it's Google, don't employ people based on what they have learnt so far. They base them on their ability to learn. Because actually, when they employ them today, that's not the stuff that they're going to be using in 5 years' time. So it's all about flexibility of learning, and that's absolutely what we need to be teaching our young people. It really, really is. And I think we need to, in a sense, break the mold of what we think they need, because they're not going to be living and working in a society that looks like this. And we really need to keep that in mind. So
it's so true. And I think it goes back to that. I heard a man talking about a job interview he went to, and it was down to 4 people, and they all actually got told no, but what they were looking for was the person who said why. Like, so they were actually looking for the person. It was a big, I can't remember what the company was, but like you said, Google, it was one of those big companies. And they were trying to see, will any of these 4 ask why? And they want to learn, seeking that feedback. And that this person actually was the person who replied and said why, and he got the job. But if none of them had have done it, they would have went through the whole hiring process again and tried for some people more. So again, it's that always learning, always looking for more and trying to see, about what we're looking at. Yeah, Sharifah?
Yeah, I think for me as well. So now I'm trying to sort of spin it around to look at schools in the UK in particular as well. It takes a courageous culture of the school to be like that, to have a vision like that, because if you teach same old, you'll get the same old results. In fact, you might even get worse results, because we have just been faced with a crisis that no one has ever faced before, and it comes back to that. And I don't have the answer. This is just one element of it. Again, back to the aim and purpose of education. The education that we mete out now to our learners is actually redundant for their future. Does that make sense? The things that we teach them now, the experience, knowledge and skills. And I know it's the best of what has been said and done, but we need these children to come up with the best of what they are going to say and do, because a lot of the knowledge and skills will be redundant. And that is why I love that example of, the company who actually are looking for people who question, who are curious, who are trying to almost think of things that may not exist yet. It's interesting. And because when I look at the teachers that I lead now, some of them are still of that mindset about, and it's a mindset of fear that we need to teach it this way. Because this, I know, it is, isn't it? You've seen them, and and I don't blame them, because that's the culture we have created. And I do not know about around the world. And please, any global educators, do come in and join the conversation. In the UK, I tend to find that a lot of our teachers, bless them, because of this external pressure of accountability, because of the system that we've had, this traditional model, almost Victorian model that we have inherited, that we're finding it difficult to break that mold. And what does it say about ourselves? And what are we telling our children as well? So again, same old will produce the same old results. Is that what we want? No, it's not. And yeah, that flexibility is key.
No, it's so true. I think like, even just like coming from like in New Zealand and in Japan, it's I get why things are always done the way they're done, because it is safer. Like changing this, what we're talking about actually requires a whole change. Like it's not just you can change, oh, we'll stop doing this content and we'll do this instead. It's actually like a whole big vision that needs to be changed. And what does that mean? Like, is it we all just stop teaching for a year? Like it's actually, what does it mean for the school right now?
Yeah.
And I think it is little tiny steps towards, and try, like you say, learning from other places. So I really like the way New Zealand, they really focus on like the competencies, and that's a part of their curriculum, is how a person is holistically. But then we were talking about what do they need content wise as well. So you can't just go competencies, because that isn't supporting them with the content of like what they need. So it is that weaving process, and there's so many great things going on. Because even whenever you said that, Toria, that you what you learned 20 years ago, I'm pretty sure there is loads of things, and you're like, it's not about throwing everything out. It's about what can we learn like, from those 20 years of like actually what you have got. No,
when I said that, I did think that was rather dismissive of what I learned, but I didn't mean it quite so much.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's that thing about actually, if you're not continually learning as a teacher, then actually you're doing something wrong, because it's about continually relearning and thinking, am I doing the most current, am I doing the very, very best by my young people right now, or is there new research? And that's the thing that's been really interesting. That's why I love my role as an evidence lead educator, because it's all research based. When I became a teacher 20 years ago, there was no research. You did things because your friend down the road did it, or your friend in the next classroom. And it's like, oh, that's a really good idea. I'll take that. Now we're really lucky, because we've got so many people out there sort of doing the research, discovering what works, and actually then we can implement that. And I think that's really, really vital, that we are doing those things based on an evidence base, as opposed to just, oh, because I fancy doing this actually. Because whilst I don't believe in this whole catch-up program and late tutoring and weekend work and all the rest, I do believe that we need to do the very best by our children, because they haven't got time to lose. And I think that's the best way.
I think that's a really good summary of what we've done. I think I really like it's the research and the action, the research, and because like research, because what I've noticed, I'm the same as you, I love the research part of it, but I need to take the research and say, what does that mean for my kids? It's not like it's not like this is what the research says and it's going to work. It's actually like I really like the process of what you're talking about, is you research it and then you're bringing that into the practice, because I think that's what we need to do more of, is okay, that's what research says, but doesn't mean it works for every person. We can't say we're taking that and just put it into the classroom. It's about that weaving process again. So and I thought, so many takeaways, guys.
I know. And can I touch on something, because we're actually running out of time, but there's something really important. We talked about the pandemic, but there have been other crises around the world that impacts on every single person, whether we like it or not. We're still talking about racism. Oh my goodness, that's a whole other dialogue as well. But all these things, what we want our children to grow up to be, because right now we are being faced with crisis upon crisis that, to tell the truth, if we don't start thinking and tackling, it will just become worse and worse. Does that make sense?
Go ahead.
Yeah, and it comes back down to empathy as well, to understanding people's lived experiences. Absolutely, back there, the theme is fabulous, by the way, and we need to pull it together as well, because at the end of the day, again, it comes back to what is the aim and purpose of education, what we want our children to grow up to be. So I think it's those bigger questions, and like you say, it will take time, step by step, but those steps are so vital and important.
No, it's so true. And I think that's what I was going to say. It comes back to empathy. Like that's the humanness of us, trying to bring that more out. Like I think like that, rather than judging, rather than like expecting these things, how can we bring it back to understanding and empathy? Like, yeah, and I really like the way we've got some, even just empathy for ourselves. I think that's what the takeaways from me is today, is like those affirmations, those little things of like having gratitude and really being aware of those sessions. So, love it, guys. You've actually been on quite good behavior, team. I will say this. I will say you actually been in very good behavior.
You didn't have to do this.
No, I did not. No, I did not. I am very proud of you guys.
We are quite well behaved sometimes.
Well, let's not go too much, should we? We'll take the compliment of you've been quite good tonight. Yeah, so I think just to end off the session is I want to get some takeaways from you guys, of just like where you've been in the world, nice little way to end the show. So we'll have Toria come up first. I'll put your little visual up, and can you see a little bit here, a little bit of, yeah, put your little visual up.
How beautiful is that?
Beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about this, Toria, for Global Light Unite?
Yes, this is Worthing Pier. So I live in Worthing, which is the south coast of England, and I absolutely love walking along the beach, walking, along by the pier, etc. Worthing is where Oscar Wilde wrote The Importance of Being Earnest, and yes, I have lived here now for over 20 years, and I absolutely love this place. It's beautiful. So for anyone that wants to come, and we also do bowling a lot of, if you're really old.
Only for the really old people. Is that all?
Well, I'm not old. Well, I don't think we're there yet, Sharifah. Maybe give us 10 years. And I'll sign us both up to the bowling greens.
Oh, you are funny.
That's exercise, guys. That's exercise. You said you couldn't do it, but that's definitely some exercise.
No, well, yeah, I think we could definitely do that, couldn't we? Definitely.
She's like, no.
Yeah, okay.
She's not convinced.
So I need to stand up for this.
I'll tell you where.
She has her excuse. She's having none of it. And Sharifah, tell us a bit about your world.
Right. Well, I grew up in Singapore. I was born in Singapore, grew up in Singapore. This is what we call pre-university or junior college, just before university. It's 2 years. The best years of my life. Well, every year is the best year of my life, but that's my best friend, Brenda. It's a very multicultural, multi-ethnic society, and our group of friends represented, all the different ethnicities and races, and we all spoke Singlish, not English, but Singlish. It's a brand of English in Singapore, but we all had our own languages as well, and we just learned so much from each other. Brenda now lives in Canada, in Vancouver, and it's just this, it's nostalgic. I mean, look at my hair. What was I thinking of? But and we had to wear uniform until we were 18, would you believe? But it's a different system, isn't it? But it just harps back to those glorious days where nothing really mattered. And I think what I would love is for our children to have that experience of actually nothing really matters. You are here and here now, and have fun with who you are. So yeah.
Lovely message. Have fun with who you are. I think that actually is a beautiful thing. Have fun with who you are. That's because it is. We can talk serious stuff, which is good, but also fun's important. Like us having a giggle, us having a laugh. Like I love like that. That's what is really, really important as well. Have fun with who you are. Cute. Well, that is the end of our session, guys. And I'm going to give you a full 10 out of 10 for behavior. Honestly, yes. You should be so proud of yourself. So well behaved. So well behaved. And no, such good. No, such good takeaways as well, and I'm grateful for everyone involved in the chat too. So we've had lots and lots of things. Yeah, that's Karen actually has been joining the chat, and she said I lived there for 2 years, and that's where I met Naomi. Singapore is one of the most beautiful places. Yeah, I went there to be to get Google certified in Google Innovation, and I met loads of people around the world. Oh my God, it's such a gorgeous place, and like you say, it's very multicultural, different things that go on there. So it's love it. Such a beautiful, beautiful area. So thank you guys for coming on. Thank you for everyone in the chat as well. Thank you for joining in and being part of the conversation, and just have fun with who you are. What a beautiful way to end the session, and a beautiful summary of like what we've actually been talking about. So thank you for joining in, and I am So grateful to have you guys, and I will see you later. So we just want to say at the very end, if you would like to subscribe to our channel, you can join in and you can find out more on our app, bit.ly/educators app. You can find out more, and we have just announced our very first 3. We have a live Q&A coming up with Richard Gerver on the 20th or 21st of February, and we have Jessica, and we have teacher to learner, and we have Jay is his first name, coming on to join us for the chat as well. So there's 3 more places that you can join in, bit.ly/Richard Gerver EE. You can sign up to be part of that with myself and Lauren and Richard in a couple of weeks' time. So make sure you're joining in, and that is the end of us. Goodbye, good morning, good evening, good night. I'll end the way I started. Bye guys, thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you.